Hey all, it's Mickey with Free Roaming Photography, and in this video I'm going to run through a lot of those rainy day bird shots that I got a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to run through the images and kind of just tell you why I like them and what's working for them, what's not working. I just kind of brushed over a lot of it in the previous video. I didn't want it to get too long. So in this video, we're going to just kind of take a look at each image and see what's working, what's not working, what I could have done better, what I would have liked to have done better, what I wouldn't have changed, things like that. So real quick, if you do want to support me, I have links down in the description. Thank you so much if you even look at them. I appreciate it. No worries if not. Regardless, let's get going. So there's 12 images that I was really happy with. And first one is this red-winged blackbird. Even though I'm really happy with a lot of these images, there's still some stuff that's just, not perfect for me. So there are some things that I would like to do different. If I had the opportunity, I would. This red-winged blackbird, there's not much different that I would change. It's showing off its colors, which is really nice. You can kind of see that pop. But really what I would prefer to change is the background. Whenever you're photographing a subject, a bird, an animal, person, something, always be aware of what's going on in the background, because even if it's blurred out, even if you have a really powerful lens, those features are still going to be there and they're still going to be prominent. So what I would have liked to have done is just shift it a little bit if I could to put more green behind the red-winged blackbird, like just moved over a little bit. That would have put some of this green back here right behind it, as opposed to more cattails, which were a little bit distracting. Like I said, I'm nitpicking here with this one. It's still a great image. I'm still happy with it, but if I could redo it, I would pay more attention to the background to try to see if I could get a more solid background behind it, as opposed to something with a little bit going on. So next was this pair of Wilson's phalaropes, and I really like it. I got down as low as I could. There's only so low you can go, especially if there's stuff along the shore, before you're basically just in the water, and I was not prepared to get in the water. So regardless, this is about as low as I could get. So you can kind of see up here there is some nice depth behind them. They're not just like flat on the water, which would have been the case if I had just been standing up on the bank above the water. So I do like that I got down low. I do like that there's depth in front of and behind them. And they had some space between them, so I really had to pick one or the other to be the dominant one. And I sort of like that it's the one on the right. It's kind of leading the way. And you can sort of see there's another one just sort of, is it paying attention to it? Is it not? That's just sort of up for interpretation. I did leave enough room so that it still looks like it's swimming into the frame. And one thing to point out with all of these is that it was overcast. And I mentioned that in the previous video. If you didn't watch it, you can check it out up there. But I mentioned that in the previous video that an overcast day is my favorite kind of weather to photograph, because you see all these details, you see all that color, you see the details actually pop out, rather than having to fight with shadows and sunlight and things like that. So all these photos I think really work well because of that, and it really kind of just lets you see what's going on in the water, what's going on with their reflection, what's going on with their colors and their patterns and things like that. So this one, it's not going to win any awards, but it's a nice photo of Wilson phalaropes. And I do like that they're swimming. I do like that their reflection is a little bit obstructed by algae, which is not great, but ecologically speaking, but it's there. You kind of just have to do what you got. And this yellow-headed blackbird was calling as it was just starting to rain. You can see some of the raindrops falling in there, and they're just slightly blurred. I did not slow it down quite enough to really stop it. It was at 1/1000th of a second. So you can see, even though it was a very light rain, there's still some streaking in the raindrops. So whenever you have rain, I try to go at least 1/2000th of a second. And sometimes you think about it, sometimes you don't. It's just one of those things. You just want to get the shot before it goes away. And sometimes it goes away before you become aware of the settings. But in either case, I mean, it's still a nice shot. The moodiness, the rain starting to come down. There's a couple of small little raindrops on its wings there, which you can kind of see. And I think it gives a really nice quality. And then it's separated enough from the reed grasses that it's not getting lost in them. There's a little bit behind it, and if I could, I would remove them or just find a different background. But it's not that distracting. It's not that big of a deal. And most of the detail or most of the busyness in the reed grasses is down below, so it's not causing that big of a problem. So I actually really like this one. They make really nice subjects. I love photographing them when I can, and this was no exception. And then there's this pair of American wigeons. I like how this came out. I would have preferred to have gotten down a little bit lower if I could, because there's just sort of all this empty space right here. It's not really contributing a lot to the photo. If I could have brought the other bank down a little bit, it would have, I think, made a more interesting photo, putting a little bit more depth behind them. That being said, again, with this particular pond, I was as low as I could get, and there are some things that are working well for it. Even though I shot it at 1/1250th of a second, it still froze the rain because the rain was very light, so it was falling very slowly, wasn't big water drops, and so what did manage to freeze the rain. But it makes for some nice ambiance. There's a lot of just rain you can kind of see throughout the photo, and it's a nice portrait of a mating pair of American wigeons just swimming through a pond in a light shower. It works well because it's mostly divided into the rule of thirds. Again, I would have loved to have brought this other bank down a little bit to match that third, but it's not that big of a deal. There's some nice reflections going on in the top of the water. So overall, I'm still really happy with it. But again, there's always some things that you kind of just want to fix after the fact when it's way too late. But oh well. And then tracking swallows is one of the biggest challenges I think there is. I would have liked to have gotten something where the swallow was filling more of the frame, but that's a really hard thing to do. They are so quick, they're so aerodynamic, and they just move so fast. They will just cut an angle without even a moment's notice. And so tracking them is incredibly difficult. So I was pretty happy to come away with this. It does kind of sit on the rule of thirds. It is kind of up in the top right, and the reflection kind of balances out that full third, and then it's flying through the image. And it also is while it was raining, so I did manage to stop the rain fairly well. This was the same shutter speed as the last one, 1/1250th of a second. So again, it was just this light rain. I took this pretty much right after those wigeons. So it was a very similar rain, but there's some nice water drops happening. There's nice water raindrops falling around it. And again, I was low. Even though I was trying to get a bird in flight, I got low because that isolated, it blurred out the background behind the swallow and even did a nice effect on the reflection, which was also a little bit out of focus. But the bird itself is in focus, and that makes it really nice to have it pop out from the background like that. So complaints is I would like to see it bigger in frame, but I mean, they're swallows. That's a really hard thing to accomplish. So I'm happy with this. This is a good photo in my book. So the rain was still not very hard when I came back to this yellow-headed blackbird on my way out. And you can see I did manage to stop the rain. I was at 1/1600th of a second. Still light rain, a little bit of streaking in some of the bigger drops that you can see, but not a huge deal. And I did manage to kind of get the green behind it more cattails, which I was very happy with. Another thing is the only cattail that's in focus is the one that it's on, which creates less distraction. So it's isolated. It's the only thing in focus, and it makes you want to look at that bird because that is the only thing that you can really focus on, which works really well. I think the only thing I would change about this is if it would let me, I would just brush off that little piece of grass from its beak because I find that a little distracting. That is not a raindrop. That is just a little piece of dirt that it had on its beak, and nothing I could do about that. So I kept it. It adds a little character. It adds to the wetness of the scene. because it does look like there's just a lot going on with the moisture in the air. So yeah, overall, I'm very happy with this one. This one came out pretty ideal. Yeah, no complaints with this one at all. And then there was this Brewer's blackbird. I could tell it was going to take off. I botched up the shot of it taking off. So I was kind of bummed about that because I just didn't have the right focus mode on. But overall, I really like the environmental aspect of this. I got it on the log that it was perched on. If I had just kind of gotten the top of the log, it wouldn't have created a whole lot of context, and the log would have looked a little bit distracting. So I definitely wanted all this stuff that it was perched on and give it some environmental aspects. And then there's enough space at the top where it is looking up that you still get an idea of what it's doing. And this was a very light rain. My shutter speed dropped down to 1/800th of a second, so very slow if you're trying to capture rain. So you do see a lot of the streaking from the rain. There's not a lot that are just like little droplets. But what is nice is you got some water droplets on the back where that iridescence is. But another thing that kind of bothers me is the female is right behind it, so it kind of creates a little distraction. It doesn't isolate the full bird, which is not a huge deal. It's kind of nitpicking a little bit. It's still a nice shot. I still like it a lot, but I wished I was watching that female bird hop into frame. I was like, no, don't go behind it, don't go behind it. And it did go behind it. I could have recomposed, but I could tell that it was getting ready to fly. It wasn't going to be around for long, and I was right. It kind of took off right as I was trying to get ready to recompose. So you take what you can get. And yeah, I think the environmental shot aspect of this works well in this shot. So also on the rule of thirds, it is on the upper right third. It's kind of looking off. It kind of gives space for it to fly into, and I think that works well. So it had just started a light rain when I found this yellow warbler. Even though this is 1/1250th of a second, which again I've said is too slow, you do see a lot of the streaking in the raindrops. So it didn't quite freeze them well enough to really create just these little droplets in the air. But everything else I think is working really well. It is a little bit centered, but at the same time there's this nice sort of thing going on where these branches split, and you do have this branch down here sort of adding a little bit more to the scene, a little bit weight on the left side. And then the right side is weighted out nicely where the bird could theoretically fly into. So a lot of things working. Another thing that works really well that I love about this is I got this really muted background. It had gotten cloudy. The background was very dim to begin with, and you just get this bright yellow bird popping off of this mostly gray branch. Everything is pretty much muted except the bird, and that helps it just pop out from the background so well. A couple of minor complaints about this one, but not terribly big. Really happy with this one. And then, as I mentioned in the video that I took this in, this fox sparrow was surprisingly cooperative, and I was super happy with how close I was able to get to it. The branch it's on is a little thick for my taste. Also, it's very similar colors to the fox sparrow itself, so it doesn't pop incredibly well until you're more to its tail, which, you know, it kind of works, it kind of doesn't. But the green, the other foliage, helps it pop out. But again, there's just too many similar colors here for me to love it. I am very happy with it, that I got it. I'm very happy that it's such a good close-up shot. But I wish I could have just moved over to the right a little bit to try to isolate it from the branch. But again, it didn't stick around for very long, and that's the nature of birds, is they're not usually cooperative. They're not going to kind of hang out and let you just do what you want to do. So, yeah, I was happy with it. Would have liked it a little bit at a different angle to kind of get it separated from that branch, but overall, I'm happy with the shot. And then this chipping sparrow I shot at 1/2500th of a second, and you can see those droplets are a little bit more frozen. There's a tiny bit of streaking on a couple of them, but for the most part, they are good droplets, and they are kind of creating a nice little ambiance around the chipping sparrow, which is really well separated from the background. There's a little bit of a clumpy sagebrush back here, which gets a little bit distracting. but it's not overly distracting. It's still very blurred. You can just kind of see that there's another plant back there. And really the only thing in focus are the branches that it's on and the chipping sparrow, which works great. And there's enough of the branch to just sort of see that it's not distracting. It's just a perch, which is really all it is in this case. And just a great close-up shot of a chipping sparrow where you can really see the detail. The overcast light in this case really shows you all the intricate details in the primaries, secondaries, the crown on the head, and just everything else works so well. So I was really happy with this one. One or two super minor nitpicky things, but overall very happy with this. And yeah, even though it's a common bird, still, I mean, the common birds are beautiful and they deserve to be looked at. And then I got this Calliope hummingbird, which you can see these streaks are absolutely gorgeous. I love the Calliopes for that streaking on their throat. A lot of it happened to match that patterning of these thin willow branches that it was perched on top of. So there's some nice duality going on. So some complementary shapes with the branches and then the willows kind of going in opposite directions. So that creates a nice, interesting sort of pattern going on. And then even though this was only 1/800th of a second, it was very dark, so I had to crank up the ISO. You do see there's a couple of raindrops that are in focus that are streaking kind of bad. It was fortunately a very light rain, so it wasn't coming down very fast. But there's more that are blurred in the background, which do look more just isolated water drops. But the ones in focus, they are a little distracting because they are blurring as opposed to just being frozen in there. Either way, I'm happy with it because hummingbirds, a lot of times they are hard to get close to, and this one was cooperative enough to get close enough to it, not filling the frame like I would always prefer, but it's a nice environment shot, and these willow branches work well to kind of mimic the throat, and I kind of like that. So it really kind of works well. So it's not always about filling the frame, it's about capturing the environment and finding some similarities that work with the subject. And then the rain had pretty much stopped for this broad-tailed hummingbird, but that throat, that color just popping. I mean, this is a bright background. This is a bright green background, and it is just minimized by the colors on this broad-tailed hummingbird. The throat, the crown, the wings, it manages to pop so well, and it never hurts to have complementary colors. Green and red are of course complementary colors, and magenta is going to be on that spectrum, as well as some of these paler greens. So it really kind of helps to just blow it off of the background. The branches I'm not crazy about. They don't bring a whole lot to the composition. I find these a little bit distracting down here on the bottom right. If it was just these branches coming up where the hummingbird is perched on and the one above it, I might like it better, but it's still okay. It's not too bad, and really all the attention is going to that throat because it is so bright, it is so vivid, and just pops so well. That's the thing about hummingbirds. People think you need the sunlight to really see. You don't. I mean, you need sunlight because daytime, but overcast, you still get that detail, and you get it even better because the shadows aren't interfering. So yeah, I'm still really happy with this. This was a beautiful bird, a beautiful shot, and I can't complain. So those are the 12 images that I was really happy with. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I would love to hear them. I would love to answer any questions. And if you like this, please like and subscribe. I've got a lot more stuff like this. And thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next time.